came a little bit early, just to get myself set up. You can now wind me up.
Okay, Ajahn.
Can you see from over there, the screen? Okay, good. Very good.
Is the radio on?
Is there?
It transmits on wireless transmitter.
As long as you turn on the amplifier, it'll be on.
It should be on better.
Yeah, just want to check it out, make sure it is. Can you hear okay? See? Yeah, just wait and see if it goes through the transmitter as well. Does Mamoka know that it's at 4 o'clock? Yeah, okay. Very good, you see. I called him, he comes, very obedient. The other thing which you could have is some tissues. Yeah, thank you. It's okay. Oh, some there, thank you. My blind spot. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Bodhi's here, very nice. Oh, and did Ksenia take the donations in?
It wasn't there, Ajahn. Oh, couldn't Ken have taken it yesterday?
Ken took it this morning.
Ken and Lynn took it this morning. If you know, please let me know if they've taken it. We don't get confused. Okay. Goodness gracious. Okay, I have 4 o'clock. Just wait for the motor to settle in. Okay, I'm going to start now. It's 4:01. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ dhammāṃ saṅghāṃ namasāmi. So this is the word of the Buddha, the second class And for those who didn't hear before, that make sure that all of the people who go through this monastery are trained to hear the suttas. And these suttas, the translation I'm using, as you should all know, is based on Venerable Ñāṇatiloka's word of the Buddha, but then added some things, taken out other things which did not really fit. But most importantly, changing some of the translations, not changing their meaning, but just upgrading some of the similes, and also just taking away some of the repetition, which turns people away from the beautiful teachings of the Buddha. And you'll see that later on. In this particular class, there is some similes, and I just looked at some of the translations in those similes and the upgrading of some of those similes, and I think you will probably enjoy them. It makes it more relevant to us. So we start off with the 3 characteristics of existence. I think that's correct, is it not? Good. And it's a very simple statement. All phenomena that arise from a cause do not persist. That was the translation I did for anicca. Persist, in other words, they don't always stay there. And some of that translation I got from the Vinaya, where there's 2 types of meals which the monks enjoy, and which actually one type called nicca food, nicca bhatta. And nicca bhatta is when somebody comes one day every week, and that happens here. You know, Tuesday. I know it's Tuesday by who comes and brings food on that day. I know it's Thursday, who comes on that day. And sometimes when a person comes on a different day, I think, hey, what day is it today? That's nicca, it's regular food coming like once a week or once a month. And that word nicca, where it's used in real life, and that comes from the Vinaya. The Vinaya is a great place to start learning Pali, because you're not learning metaphysical terms. You're learning practical terms of daily life, which make it very easy to understand what that word meant to the people the Buddha talked to in his time. So everyone would know that nicca meant something which is usually regular. Anicca is when it's irregular. You know, it's there for many times and then disappears. It doesn't persist. That's a far better translation than the very confusing rise and fall idea. So all 4 phenomena that arise from a cause do not persist. All phenomena that arise from a cause are suffering, dukkha. All phenomena. Sometimes we pause, what does phenomena mean? What does anicca mean? But also to say, that what does all mean? Sabba. It means everything, no exceptions. All phenomena that arise from a cause are suffering. All phenomena are without a permanent essence. And the permanent essence, as I mentioned last week, many people call that a self, a soul, an original mind, a being, or whatever. No permanent essence inside, which goes from one phenomena to another phenomena. All phenomena are without a permanent essence. The 3 characteristics of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta. What do you think? Does form, body, persist or disintegrate? Pretty easy to understand. It disintegrates, Venerable Sir. Even though today that many people would love to find a cure for aging, a remedy for old age. That's very relevant to me the day after my 70th birthday, but I know that no remedy is to be found. I'm going to die. It doesn't persist, this body. Nevertheless, that people will continue to try and find a remedy for the disintegration, the perishing of this body even. total madness. Can it be ever found? You think? You think you can, the permanent body? No way. And who would want it anyway? So is what disintegrates suffering or happiness? It's suffering, Venerable Sir. That motivates people to find a remedy for it in trying to find a form of body which doesn't ever disintegrate. But it says all bodies disintegrate. Is what disintegrates is suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus: this is mine, this I am, this is a permanent essence. So this is the first argument which the Buddha says, something which disintegrates. And it's also suffering. It's subject to change. Can you really regard it, this is mine, I own this? Do you want to own suffering? This is subject to change. It disintegrates. Is that who you are? This I am. This is the permanent essence. Is suffering your permanent essence? Yeah, there's a way out. No, Venerable Sir. That's just the body. Does experience, Vedana, persist or disappear? Does perception persist or change? Does the will stay the same or come, go and alter? Are consciousnesses constant or changing? One of the first things you may notice here, I used a different translation for anicca for each of the different khandhas, simply because you don't say, does experience persist, does will persist, does consciousnesses persist. It's far better to use a different translation of anicca for each of those khandhas. And the argument for that, again, comes from good old Professor Warder, who said you never translate words, you translate phrases, sentences if you like. Because the unit of language should never be the word, but should be the phrase. It's a phrase which people understand, not a word. And that's what I've done there. I haven't translated, say, sankhara and anicca, sabbe sankhara anicca. I've translated sankhara anicca together. Will does not stay the same. Or come, go and alter. That's what I'm doing. So you might see the same word, a different rendering, because the different rendering is because of the words which surround it. I'm translating phrases, not words. And as you know, yesterday, when I went through last week, went through the khandhas, the translation's there as well. Experience, I still prefer that. Some people don't, but I love that one. Perception, same. Will for sankhara. There's a brilliant translation because it's something. If it's volitional formations, how often do you use the word volitional formations in your everyday speech? How many say, I didn't volitionally intend to make that mistake today? I didn't will it, I didn't mean it. So does will stay the same or come, go and alter? And again, the one thing about consciousness, there's 6 types of consciousness. That's why I translate them as consciousnesses. And it changes, it's valid, and it changes just the whole theme of this. It becomes much more powerful. Always changing, Venerable Sir. Is what is always changing, suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. And that also just brings up the idea that human beings always are just trying to aim for some permanent, happy resting home, where everything is happy and pain-free forever after. That's the old Disney saying. And they rode off into the sunset and they lived happily ever after. And that's what people would aim for, intend for, even as monks and nuns. To ride off on a Virgin flight to Melbourne and live in NBM happily ever after. Of course, it's going to be suffering. So this is why he says, what is always changing, suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir, is what is inconstant, suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus. This is mine, this I am, this is the permanent essence. No, Venerable Sir. And so again, a lot of the time with the Anatta doctrine, which is coming up now, we want to somehow try and find where is the real me, the essence, the thing which never changes, the stuff inside of me which I can get to there and stay with there, protect it. What I sometimes call like a citadel. And the old idea of castles, betraying my English heritage, and castles will be a place where people would go and live happily ever after and defend it, and it would always be there. And there's no such place. Number one, that's scary. But number two, it's truthful. And number three, the Buddha shows a way out. So it's a vanishing. But anyway, the Anatta doctrine. This particular similes is very famous and very beautiful. Suppose that this river Ganges was carrying along a great lump of foam. A person with good sight would inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow and empty. For what solidity could one find in a mere lump of foam? So too, whatever kind of form, body there is, whether past, future or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to you to be void, empty, insubstantial. For what solidity could there be in form? And as a physicist, that really hits home. There's no solidity even in fundamental particles. And even quantum physics, you go down to, what's it called? 10 to minus 36, meters. What's that number called again? Sorry? Planck. Yeah, Planck, yeah. Very good, the Planck number. And that size, they actually call sort of stuff like foam-like. It's not really there, but it's not there. It's like foamy. I remember when I first heard that from a quantum physicist that came and said, yeah, the Buddha was right. But he should have read the Buddha first of all. But that's a foam-like substance of stuff. No solidity there. Now the next one for experience. Suppose it were raining and big raindrops are falling. A water bubble arises and bursts on the surface of the water. A person with good sight would inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, and momentary. For what permanence could there be with a water bubble? So too, whatever kind of experience there is, whether past, future, or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to you to be void, empty, momentary. For can anything constant be found in experience? So what about experience in jhanas? It's void, empty, momentary. The moments are pretty long. But it's not constant. What about merging with an original mind? It's experience. And the Buddha said, whatever kind of experience there is void, empty, momentary. Nothing constant can be found in such things, if it is an experience. Suppose in the last month of the hot season, around noon, a shimmering mirage appears. A person with good sight would inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, and illusory. For what reality could there be in a mirage? So too, whatever kind of perception there is, whether past, future, or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect and carefully investigate it, it would appear to you to be void, empty, illusory. For what reality could there be in perception? Do you like this talk so far? Do you not like it? Both perceptions are void, empty, illusory. What reality can be found in them? Why do some people like this explanation, some people not? It's all conditioned from the past. So that's one of the reasons why, even your perceptions, you can't give a solid reality to. You only see what you want to see. You don't see what you don't want to see. You bend the truth all the time. Except when the five hindrances are gone. Then you're not bending anything. Suppose a person needing hardwood would take a chainsaw and enter a forest. Is that a good translation? Because that's not what's in the suttas. That's not what's in the Pali, a chainsaw. They say a two-handed saw, or an axe or something, I forget which now. But how many of you, if you need hardwood, would take an axe or a two-handed saw? Wouldn't you take a chainsaw? So a simple thing like that, obvious thing, that makes it more alive and more relevant. And enter a forest. There they would see the trunk of a large banana tree, straight, fresh, without a fruit bud core. They would cut it down at the root, cut it off at the crown, and unroll the coil. As they unroll the coil, they would not even find softwood, let alone hardwood. A person with good sight would inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, and without a base. For what basis could there be in the trunk of a banana tree? You know banana trees, I hope. You know, if you unroll them, I remember seeing so many times banana trees over in Thailand. You cut them down and you unroll them. It's all fleshy stuff. There's no hardwood there in a banana tree. Are there any banana trees here? We have had some before. But anyway, so too, whatever kind of will there is, whether past, future, or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect it and carefully investigate it. As you investigate them, it appears to you to be void, empty and hollow. For what underlying basis could there be in volition? Now that is powerful if you read it again, contemplate it. All types of will, you inspect it and carefully investigate it. As you investigate it, it appears to be void, nothing there, empty and hollow. You think that you are willing things. And anyone who wants to take that further, I just really love the work done by, what's it called, neuroscientists, people who actually have a look, see what is actually the process of will. And years and years ago, it was Professor Libet, L-I-B-E-T, who did this very simple but powerful experiment, just deciding to flex one's hand, open it, flex it. And in the other hand, the person doing the experiment would press a button when they decided, when they knew their will to open the hand. They press it when they decided to close it. And they had big gizmos on their brain. What they noticed was another thing which happened in the brain called the readiness potential. That's the name they gave it. So parts of the brain lit up. What was it like half a second before they actually decided to open their hand? What you take as your will, what you can be aware of as the will, what the thing you name as a will, by the time that occurs, it's already started. We only see the middle of the process, not the beginning of the process. Your will, what you recognize as your will in meditation and other things, is not the start of any volitional process. It's already begun to happen. Then you see it, then it happens. Suppose that a magician would perform a trick at a crossroads. In the time of the Buddha, they would always do tricks at crossroads. I think that means they got more people coming and maybe get bigger audience. These days we only get cameras at crossroads and policemen. A person with good eyesight would inspect it, ponder it, and carefully investigate it, and would appear to them to be void, hollow, and deceptive. For what truth could there be in a magical illusion? So too, whatever kind of consciousness there is, whether past, future, or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to you to be void, empty, and deceptive. For what authenticity could there be in consciousnesses? And the idea of a magical illusion is so often that in magic your attention is diverted. You're not seeing what's really happening. You find out that when you do have a magician, we used to have one of the monks here, it was Venerable Vimala, wasn't it? Do you remember our Venerable Vimala, the English monk? Yeah, you remember him, yeah. He used to do magic tricks, and I remember him showing me a very simple one. He used to do that as a little entertainer for kids when he was a layperson. He would take little bits of tissue paper and something and tear them up, and then tear them up and roll them up, and then they were gone. It was really incredible to actually to see that. He made them vanish. But then he said, I'll do it to somebody else and see it from a bit of a distance, have a bigger perspective. And he was taking bits of it and then he was throwing them away all over the place. But I couldn't see that because I was focusing on the hands, and they were getting smaller and smaller, and they finally disappeared. And that's all the time with magic tricks. They just take your attention away from where the magic is, or the ordinary stuff is really happening. So anyway, that's the same as consciousness. If you see it a little bit more carefully, you find it is just like those cards. And you flip them, and there's an illusion of continuity. You draw little pictures of a person, and you flip them very, very fast. It looks like somebody's running, or someone is falling over. That's the same which was developed eventually to be the movies. Still frames running very fast, which give the illusion of continuity. Or just your computer screen, which is only little pixels. And if I had a magnifying glass or had a microscope, you could see it's just little dots of light. But to me that looks continuous.
Slow-mo camera, you can see them coming.
Yeah, slow-mo, you can see them coming one after the other. They're not permanent. So these little ideas shows when the Buddha was saying it's a magician's trick, there's a perception there which you're not seeing. And you give it a meaning it doesn't deserve. It's not authentic. So because of that, no authenticity can be in consciousnesses. Carries on. One who seeks pleasure in the body in form seeks only irritation. You just scratched your head with an mudito. Did you get pleasure out of that or irritation? It's true. We seek pleasure. And one of the things, now it's quite a few people are scratching something. A lot of the time we don't realise that. If ever you're watching others, and because I'm in the front here, I can see all of you, I can always see somebody scratching something. Yeah, there you go. But it happens so often that we forget about it. There you go there, and you did that as well. There's nothing wrong with it. There you go. You can't stop it, but you're not aware of it most of the time simply because it's not important. And the body is very irritating. So one who seeks irritation, I say, is not freed from suffering. One who seeks gratification and experiences seeks only disappointment. One who seeks disappointment, I say, is not freed from suffering. For those of you who have seen one of the birthday cards, I got one of my favourite birthday cards, I don't know where it's gone, the one which you press a button and his cats start singing happy birthday to me. Where did that go?
It's in the pantry.
It's in the pantry. To chase the mice away. But, you see, where did that come from? Oh yeah, the person who sent me that, I always remember her for when, Pauline Shields, for when she went with a group led by Book Palini to India. And towards the end of that pilgrimage, everyone wanted to go to the Taj Mahal. When you got to the Taj Mahal, I remember she had a look at it and she asked me, Ajahn Brahm, this is a bit OTT, isn't it? OTT means over the top. I said, amazing, well done. It is over the top. Why do people call it beautiful? Because you've been conditioned to think it is. You've been brainwashed to think it is. You look at it, not particularly beautiful. But people who seek gratification and experiences will eventually get disappointed. So many times, I don't mind saying this, that I've gone to places, do you want to see Niagara Falls? When I went to Toronto, I had a free day. No thanks. Do you want to go and see the Grand Canyon? No. Do you want to see the Great Wall of China? I've never been into China. How many of you have seen the Great Wall of China? Do you really want to see the Great Wall of China? See the Great Wall of Bodhinyana, it's just out the front here. It's only a wall, that's all. So little by little, you don't seek gratification and experiences. And that's really weird. Sometimes people can't understand that. People have bucket lists. They want to see buckets. I don't know. That's why they're called kick the bucket. Anyway, so one who seeks gratification and experiences seeks only disappointment. Sometimes we make it up, oh, that's fantastic. But really I look, oh, actually, what was fantastic about that? And perceptions. One who seeks reality, oh, this is nice, who seeks reality in perceptions, seeks only illusions. Now I'm going to try, and I wish the health officer who's coming tomorrow would be here. And they say, your perceptions, it's not real. Those mouse droppings, that's not mouse droppings. If you seek reality in perceptions, health officer, you're seeking only illusions. It's a good argument, but I don't think it will work. One who seeks for illusions, I say, is not freed from suffering. One who seeks contentment in volition seeks only frustration. I like that line. So in volition, look, each one of you, you're getting to know me pretty well, those of you who have stayed here long enough. So you know how to get what you want from me. You find me in a nice mood. You say a new joke. You wait till after a very good breakfast. And then a good cup of tea with condensed milk. Then you come up and ask something. Thinking that your volition, if you're wise about it, then you could find some satisfaction, gratification, contentment. How many of you, getting your own way, only get frustration? One who seeks for frustration is not free from suffering. You don't get what you want. In no way. One who seeks eternity in consciousness. These are good lines here. One who seeks eternity in consciousnesses seeks only for the affliction of more rebirth. Ooh. One who seeks for rebirth, I say, is not freed from suffering. So, what you're doing here, if it's in body, you get irritation. If it's an experience, you get disappointment. If you get perceptions, you're going to get illusions. You get will, you only get frustrated. And if you get for consciousnesses, you just get more rebirth. Not much fun, is it? But this is my life. Am I a miserable person? Why aren't I more miserable? Why this laughter, why this joy when it's ever burning? Shrouded all about in gloom, why you look for the light? Well, won't you look for the light? Look at this attention-demanding body, a mass of irritations, constantly needing support, prone to illness with nothing stable or lasting. This body gets worn out. Ugh. So fragile. Ugh. An incubator for disease. When life ends in death, this disappointing body dissolves. The 3 warnings. But, my friend, didn't you ever see a man or woman 70 years of age, 80 years of age or more, frail, sickly, struggling to walk, even with a walking frame, with many a complaint, strength gone, false teeth, white hair or a wig, with wrinkled skin and blotched limbs and forgetful? Did you ever see that? Yes. Are you like that? He would say, no, not me. My friend, didn't it occur to you an intelligent and mature person? Are you intelligent and mature here? I too am subject to old age. I am not exempt from old age. Let me now do good karma while I still can, by body, speech and mind. But my friend, didn't you ever see a man or a woman sick, moaning, gravely ill, bedridden, incontinent? My friend, didn't it occur to you an intelligent and mature person? I too am subject to illness. I am not exempt from illness. Let me now do good karma while I still can by body, speech and mind. Now this is not just by body. Speech as well. People think a lot of time doing good karma by body, like, or you gave really good donations to that NBM place the other day. It's by word as well. I didn't give any donations yesterday. By body. By word, yeah. And also by mind. So it's to train the mind to be powerful and peaceful. So let me now do good karma by body, speech and mind. My friend didn't ever see among human beings a dead man or a woman in a coffin about to be cremated or buried. And so often in our world, you're not allowed to see that. And it's really horrible that if you do go and see a loved one in an open coffin, what do they call it, those part of the undertaking profession, sorry? No, before that. Embalming, yeah. They embalm you. So, they, first of all, they make you smile. And people go and see the people who are dead and say, oh, they look so happy, so peaceful. This can't be my husband, he never smiled in his life. Or whatever it is. I remember seeing some people, I don't mind saying this, remember Ron Story? I mean, once he was embalmed, you could hardly recognise him. That's not the Ron Story which, transliterated opening the door of the heart for me and much else. Because what you see these days is far from real in the coffin. But in the old days, you see real dead bodies. They're grey. They don't have the sort of the pinkiness in their skin. And just a real corpse looks totally different than what you see in the coffin. And of course, luckily, in those days, first years in Thailand, you could actually go so many cremations. We invited, remember, everybody who was in the monastery at the time to come up and have a look. For some people, it was the first time they saw a real dead body, with nothing injected in there, just as a dead body should be. And it was real. And for many, touch it. You wouldn't catch anything, but except some wisdom. And it's very powerful experiences. So these days you don't see a dead man or woman in a coffin. You see one that's already painted, injected. Looks unreal. And also we had this beautiful experience in the first couple of years in Australia. We could actually go and see autopsies. Because Dennis Shepherd, saw him in the movie yesterday, he lived next door. His neighbour was the coroner of Perth, the state coroner. So because they were friends and mates, hey, he can get in. And so we went to see autopsies, which again, were fascinated. Yeah, the body was injected, so a little bit of cuddles put in them, but you could actually open it up and see the dead body. It was wonderful. So, a lot of you haven't really seen a dead man or woman in a coffin about to be cremated or buried who hasn't been painted up. My friend, didn't occur to you, an intelligent and mature person, I too am subject to death. I'm not exempt from death. Let me now do good karma while I still can by body, speech and mind. When are you going to die? Just a couple of days ago, went to Doug Anderson's funeral. Looked really fit, going on a bushwalk, and just had a heart attack which killed him.
But he was old.
He's only 4 months older than me. I'm next. So that's just real life. Remember, it's all about suffering. But you're in trouble. Don't think because you're in monastery, everything's going to be okay from now on. This samsara is without a beginning. Ooh, so straight away, that's a powerful statement. Because so many religions are about beginnings. So, without beginning. This is from the Buddha. A first point is not found of beings roaming and wandering on, blinded by delusion and addicted to wanting. Blinded by delusion is an easily word, blinded by delusion, but addicted to wanting. That's a powerful statement. Like most addictions, it's hard to give up. Try and cold turkey, but then you want more. You want things. Trying to cold turkey is what we call rains retreats. Where you sit in your huts. You want things, but you can't get it. So this is how we break our addiction to wanting things. That's one of the things like teaching meditation. Stop your wanting. Learn how beautiful it is not to want a thing in the whole world. Just sitting here, eyes closed, not moving, not wanting to move, not wanting to scratch, not wanting to get into jhanas, not wanting to get enlightened, not wanting anything. Imagine just how calm and peaceful that is. Don't just imagine it, experience it. It's hard to do because we are addicted to wanting something. What do you think? Which is more, the stream of tears that you have wept as you roamed and wandered on through your many lives, weeping and wailing because of enjoying the disagreeable and not getting what you want? This, or the water in all the great oceans. For a long time you have experienced grief through the death of a loved one, or of a dear friend, or the loss of reputation. And people put you down, it's really unfair. You lose your wealth. As you have experienced this weeping and wailing because of enduring despair and of not getting what you want, don't say what you deserve. You're not getting what you want. The stream of tears that you have wept is more than the water in all the great oceans. And of course, the joke there is, that's why the ocean water is salty. That's a lot of tears, and this is from the Buddha, not exaggerating this. It really tells you just the mess we're in. Which do you think is more, the streams of blood that you have shed when you are beheaded as you roamed and wandered on through this long course, this or the water in all the great oceans? For a long time, you, each one of you, Mudito, our nuns, newly ordained, each one of you have been arrested as murderers, burglars and adulterers. And when you were beheaded, the stream of blood that you shed is greater than the water in all the great oceans. Do you accept that? If you know the amount of times you've been reborn, many, 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 many times, it's just probability. In the wrong time, the wrong place, whatever. For what reason? Because samsara is without a beginning. A first point is not discerned of beings who, blinded by delusion and addicted to wanting, are journeying through this round of rebirth and death. Even just one person, wandering on through their many lives, blinded by delusion and addicted to wanting, will leave behind a stack of bones, a heap of bones, a mass of bones, as large as Mount Everest. In this simile, they said the Himalayas. But people don't really appreciate the Himalayas, but you appreciate Mount Everest. As large, if if there was someone to collect them all, and what was collected would not perish. For what reason? Because this samsara is without beginning. For such a long time you have experienced suffering, agony and disaster, and swelled the cemeteries with your bones from your many lives. It's enough to experience revulsion, nibbida, towards all volitional formations, will. Enough to let go of the cause of more birth. Enough to be liberated from samsara. This is how the Buddha taught. And just the reason you say that is not to be sort of nasty or gross or depressive, but to be real, and that allows you to notice there is a problem. And that problem, you cannot run away from it, but you can understand through nibbida towards volitional formations, will. You can sit down quietly and find the escape. Now, don't mind saying it's an escape, because that's how the Buddha taught. The question is why? Why do we keep getting reborn? So we get the noble truth of the origin of suffering. But before I start talking about that, it's a nice time to have a pause and to see if there are any questions. As I look for the hands going up, I see the usual suspects. Over the back first of all, Robin. You got your hand up first.
Going right back to the beginning.
There is no beginning. The Buddha said that there's no beginning.
Well, no, he said there's no, that was my second question. He said there's no discoverable beginning. It's not the same. Just because you can't go back far enough doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
This samsara is without a beginning.
He says discoverable.
Oh, no. Without a beginning.
So, well, that was my second question.
Yeah.
Why does everybody else translate discernible or discoverable beginning?
I would say that it is without a beginning. Not a discoverable one.
So why is everyone getting it wrong and you getting it right?
It is because this samsara, if you... What is actually... Let's see if the words here. This, because I brought in the Pali here to see where do we get from here. Getting close. This is Sung 15.3. Anamatago yang bhikkhave samsara. Pube koti napanyaya. In other words, it does not say a discoverable beginning. Maybe you might say it's immeasurable, but I would actually say that that is a very good translation. It is without a beginning. Sometimes, if people say a discoverable or discernible beginning, I would think they were trying to find some idea of an origin of a universe, and with an origin, an originator, the idea of the God idea coming in, a Hindu concept, something creating something.
Okay. So my original question, got sidetracked by, was right at the beginning you...
Oh, sorry, yeah.
It was all about the cause of things.
Yeah.
All phenomena are without cause or that. Do not exist and stuff like that. Now, I remember from the first workshop that Ajahn Brahm and Venerable Sunyo did, there was a big discussion. Actually, it's condition, not cause. And then by the next workshop, Ajahn Brahm had reverted either by habit or choice to cause. And he never actually explained why he didn't stick to condition.
Yes.
And you've got cause.
Cause is much more precise, understandable. When you actually just go into the kitchen and so the oven has been left on, and there's a problem. So you don't say who conditioned this, you say who caused it. So the idea of conditioned is sometimes it's too metaphysical and not discernible by enough people.
Well, I think the original argument was that cause is such a specific thing that this caused that. And
Correct.
it's direct. Whereas they were saying that conditioned is more accurate because sometimes it's many things coming together that...
Yeah, but that is also cause.
For something to happen.
Yeah, but that's also cause as well. It's a more simple word, and I think more precise. And it's also, it does avoid this terrible metaphysical black hole when people say, yeah, that's the conditioned, now there's the unconditioned. And too many people just get so lost in the lunacy of thinking an unconditioned can be anything, just about. But how many people say the uncaused? Uncaused is a much more meaningful saying. Something you can get your head around and you can penetrate more directly. Okay. Does it make sense?
Well, I still don't know why they changed their mind, because they had a very specific reason why cause was wrong, not that it's, but they were saying
no,
wrong.
I put my hand up for cause. Find the cause of it. Okay, you were next.
Okay, so you, as many translators, have not translated karma and samsara. I'm just why don't you translate like these?
Great, yes. Because I think for most people reading, not just reading but listening to this, that you know what samsara is. You get an understanding of what the word is, and with the different descriptions which you hear in this book, you actually find more of those meanings and you understand the word much better. The same with karma. Karma is a word in common usage these days. And so because of that, you talk about it here, the Buddhist understanding of it, and you can't find, if there was a word which so a word which was exactly what samsara means, and then you would use that word. There may be a word in Finnish, I don't know. But there's in Finnish for samsara, I don't know. But one thing in Finnish language. But I do know, having sort of learnt my Thai when I was in Thailand, just to know that there's some words in Thai which do not have a meaning in English. So English meanings you cannot translate into Thai, because it's a different culture, a different framework. So, and I like having things like jhana, just say jhanas. Instead of, what is...
Deep meditation sometimes.
It's deep meditations when I'm trying to hide what I'm doing.
Yeah, sometimes they translate as a deep meditation, jhana.
Yeah. But what was Ajahn Sujata translating it as?
Immersion.
Immersion, yeah. That is for me. But you can see a little bit of why he's saying that. But why not use jhana? Because that means everybody knows what you're talking about. Yes?
Yeah, it says samsara is without beginning. Is that because at a very profound level it doesn't actually exist?
That, in the sense that it stops people wondering about where these things came from. And just, when you have cause, it's one of the reasons why I stick to this without a beginning, because one thing causes another thing, and that is, in that perception, that is endless and beginningless. Yes.
With dependent cessation, like the things that make up samsara are of a nature to disappear and cease. So if you try and apply logic, then you come up with all sorts of problems. But I suppose if you just see that it has no beginning as a way of stopping that proliferation, it's more like a teaching tool, isn't it?
But be careful there, because there's one monk who said, oh, anatta, of course there's a self somewhere, just saying non-self is just a teaching tool. A skillful means for people to find the real truth. And that was a bit really dodgy. So because of that, no. It's remember that the person you take to be Nicholas, that ceases. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But, samsara will go on. Okay. So let's go to the noble truth of the origin of suffering. The threefold wanting. You know that I don't use the word craving, and I didn't actually mention this last time. The common translation of craving seems to limit the scope of tanha to the more intense forms of wanting. Indeed, the Oxford English Dictionary definition of craving is a powerful desire for something. A powerful desire. I understand that even weak forms of wanting may also lead to rebirth, as in the simile of the quail, and many of you would know that one. So I have chosen a more inclusive rendering, wanting, not just a craving. You may want a glass of water, but you don't really crave it, you can do it without. But nevertheless, that wanting is enough to qualify as a cause of suffering.
Don't drink water.
Sorry?
Don't drink water.
The threefold wanting. Now this noble truth of the origin of suffering, it is this wanting which leads to rebirth, accompanied by enjoyment and desire, seeking delight now here, now there. That is wanting related to the five senses. Wanting to be and wanting not to be. Annihilation. Now that does need a bit of explanation there, because it's a powerful statement that the wanting of the related to the five senses is not just wanting a glass of water, it's even thinking about wanting the water. It's just not wanting sort of sexual stimulation, it's just thinking about it, fantasizing about it. It's not just wanting to listen to great music, it's just imagining it in your head. Any wanting which is related to those five senses is the first type of wanting. And the second type of wanting is more powerful, the wanting to be. And the best story about that, which makes it very clear, is when this hippie guru, Ram Dass, went to visit one of his students' parents in hospital in the United States. And when the father saw his daughter come into his room, he was very happy. When he saw this long-haired guru, he was very upset, getting this dirty old hairy guy out of the room or something. And so, while the daughter was talking to her father, Ram Dass started giving this guy a foot massage. And the pain of his disease suddenly went away. And the father said, "Get away from my feet, now." And it was an interesting experience, because even though the Ramdas had taken away this terrible pain in his body due to his illness, this man would rather have the pain than just have his idea of being so destroyed. In other words, we'd rather be in pain than not be at all. Which is one of the reasons why, at the end of life, people still cling on. Even though you're in pain, there's no viable future for you. You will still cling on to existing because you're afraid of not being. You're craving to be. And that's a tough one. That also comes up when you get towards your deep meditations. Why is there a fear of entering a jhana? It's crazy. You've read about it, you've been encouraged to do it. Oh, maybe not. Because being as you experience it is being taken away from you. And that is scary. But little by little, being disappears. And this is not the annihilationism, the craving, wanting not to be annihilated. That is obviously overcome with wisdom. There's nothing being annihilated. When there's nothing there's nothing to be destroyed. There's just a process coming to its cessation. Remember the third way, there isn't something, there is not nothing. It's just this process, the third way in between. That's why the Buddha called that the middle way. Anyway, where is the origin of wanting? Where does this wanting arise and become established? Wherever in the world, wherever there's anything agreeable and pleasurable, there this wanting arises and becomes established. Sight, sound, smells, taste, tangibles, mind objects in the world are agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. The six consciousnesses, sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and mind, are agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. It's not always pleasurable, but we always have the illusion that if we find all the tricks, then we can make it pleasurable. And the pleasurable is, it's not that bad. The unpleasurable, the suffering's not that bad if we get the pleasure afterwards. The experience of the six senses is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. Even experiences. The perception of sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, and mind objects is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. Will, in regards to sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, mind objects, is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. Even to want, to will, is a form of weird pleasure. Just like, people are sadists or masochists, hurting each other. They think that is pleasure, and it's weird. How can you find pleasure in that? But they do. And then wanting. Where do you find pleasure in wanting and scheming and thinking how this is going to work and what you're going to do next? Even like planning, building, mudito. It's very pleasurable to sit there and figure out how it's all going to be done. It is. Yeah, I know that. I've done that before. Well, after I thought, what the heck? I'll give it to somebody else.
No, I got it.
You got it now. That's more pleasurable. Give it to someone else. Anyway, the six consciousnesses are agreeable and pleasurable. Will in regard to the six consciousnesses is agreeable and pleasurable. There this wanting arises and becomes established. The wanting of sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, mind objects is agreeable and pleasurable. And there this wanting arises and becomes established. Thinking of sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, mind objects is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. Fantasizing about sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, mind objects is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established, and that is called the noble truth of the origin of suffering. So are you wanting this talk to finish soon? Is that pleasurable? It can be sometimes. On seeing a sight, the same with the other 6 senses. You want it if it is pleasing. You try to get rid of it if it is unpleasing. You abide with mindfulness and wisdom of the 5 senses, body unestablished, with a limited mind. And you do not understand as it actually is the liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom, when those deceiving and oppressive states cease without remainder. Engaged as you are in favouring and opposing, whatever experience you have, whether pleasant or painful or neutral, you delight in that experience, welcome it and remain holding on to it, even painful experiences. You know, when you were at school, you were trained just to endure and study, even though you wanted to go outside and play. You were almost brainwashed to enjoy unpleasant experience. When Ajahn Brahm is speaking, when you want to go out, go to the toilet, you've been brainwashed to stay. So engaged as you are in favouring and opposing, whatever experience you have, whether pleasant or painful or neutral, you delight in that experience, welcome it and remain holding on to it. As you do so, delight arises in you. Now delight in experience is a fuel. With fuel, this upadana, as conditions, states of existence develop. You're fueling them, creating them, building them. With states of existence as a condition, rebirth. With rebirth as a condition, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, negativity and distress come to be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. Now there's one little translation there which I will defend. Bhava, states of existence, places, realms where you can get reborn. It's one of the reasons why the Buddha mentioned things like Manusabhava.
Sorry, what was the Manu?
Manusabhava. Manusabhava. This is just an example, not a translation. Manusabhava is the state of existence of a human being. So you create these states of existence where you get rebirth into. All the different types of human rebirth. You want to be a female in your next life? A male in your next life? What do you want to be? The way you think and practice, you do create. So the new states of existence for yourself. That's especially true of heaven realms and hell realms. If you say, are there heaven realms? Of course there are. Where do they come from? You make them. And sometimes you read about the heaven realms in the time of the Buddha. For me, that wouldn't be a heaven realm at all. There's no listening to harp music all the time. No electric guitars. Going in chariots. Oh, come on. Isn't there any electric cars or aircraft or something, or flying cars? So you create those places. These are mind-made realms. And all those hell realms. How would you like to be tortured if you've done something wrong? You create those realms. That's why when I mentioned the karaoke hell, that's not mentioned in the text, but certainly that it would exist. Anyway, so You create these things. Now, how's it going there? It's 11 minutes past 5. Carry on or cease now?
The karma is not that long.
Okay, we'll try then. Present karma result. Oh yeah, this is not long, but this is one of the reasons I put it in here. I mentioned Sanditthika and Samparayaka. Because Sanditthika, sometimes people translate that as here and now. But it doesn't mean that at all, and this will make it very clear. It does not mean here and now. With the 5 senses as the cause, the source and the basis, the culprit being simply the 5 senses. Presidents quarrel with prime ministers, politicians with each other, priests with imams, businessmen with householders, monks with nuns, parents quarrel with each other and with their children, sibling with sibling and friend with friend, and here in their quarrels, brawls and disputes, they attack each other with abuse, weapons or lawsuits, whereby they incur death, injury or loss. Now this too is a danger in the case of the 5 senses, a massive suffering in this very life, the cause being simply the 5 senses. Now you see I've changed a few of the words there, like lawsuits, and presidents with prime ministers, imams with monks or whatever. You can change those, but it doesn't change the meaning. It just makes it a little bit more interesting, more alive. Again, with the 5 senses as the cause, people steal, commit fraud, sleep with other people's partners, commit domestic violence, sexually abuse their children, and when they are caught, they're imprisoned and ruined. Now this too is a danger in the case of the 5 senses, a massive suffering in this very life, the cause being simply the 5 senses. In this very life is the word Sanditthika. It's not sort of here and now, it's this life. It's one of those idioms of Pali. Ditta Dhamma, it literally does mean the seen stuff. That means this life. As opposed to Samparayaka, the future karma results. Again, with the 5 senses as the cause, the source and the basis, the culprit being simply the 5 senses, people indulge in misconduct of body, speech and mind. Having done so after death, they appear in states of misery, an unhappy destination in perdition, even in hell. Now this is a danger in the case of the 5 senses, a massive suffering in the life to come. Having the 5 senses as its cause, its source and its basis, this cause being simply the 5 senses. So this is one of the reasons I used to say, oh, Sanditthika Dhamma, the Dhamma. What do we say? Akaliko, Ehipasiko, Panayiko, Sanditthiko. Where we do the chanting of the Dhamma, Suakato, Bhagavata Dhammo, Sanditthiko, Akaliko, Ehipasiko, Panayiko. The first word, Sanditthiko, it does not mean here and now. It doesn't mean in this moment, it means in this very life. Is that quite clear? And Samparayaka in the future life. You will not find a spot in the world, not in the sky, not in the ocean, not inside a cave in Bodhinyana, where you'll be free from the results of karma. Karma as a volition. Volition is karma, I say. For having willed, you act by body, speech or mind. This is where the will is one of the big culprits. What is the diversity of karma? There is karma to be experienced in hell, animal realm, ghost realm, in the human world, and there is karma to be experienced in the Deva world. What is the result of karma? The result of karma, I say, is threefold, to be experienced in this very life, or in the next life, or in some subsequent life. And it's not just exclusive. Sometimes you experience the result of karma in this life, the next life, and in future lives. And that's one of the reasons why you think of all the bad karma you've done. Just one little bit of bad karma, you have to experience that not just once, but many, 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 many times. The amount of bad karma which you are still unpaid is huge. Ah! So is all the good karma you have done. And sometimes you hear the way they say things that if you were just a very kind or just give, just a banana to a fully enlightened being, then that karma is uncountable how much times you get that repaid. So I'm sure you've done that many, many times. So your amount of good karma is also huge. So you've got this huge store of good karma, this huge store of bad karma, and you can't sort of balance them out, repay your debts, with the good karma source you have. They're totally different accounts. There's no way in the world you can repay all the bad karma you've done over so many lives. Can't be repaid. Instead, you can let it go. Yay! Be a stream winner. Understanding who's holding on to these things. And then you let it go. That's a huge relief when you understand you don't have to repay bad karma. You understand it, you let go. And your good karma, make use of all the good karma. Look, every one of you, this morning, how many of you were cleaning up the kitchen so that this monastery won't have too much problems tomorrow when the health inspector comes? How many? Put your hand up. You can put your hand up shyly because you were helping out. It's amazing good karma you've done. You've supported a monastery big time. It's a good monastery. Do you feel tired because of that? Physically, yes. Emotionally, you should be high. Yesterday, I was working really hard. Many of you were working hard. Physically exhausted, but mentally just, whoa, that was good. So this is the difference between physical and emotional, mental. Use that emotional high to have great meditations. Okay, inheritance of deeds. Beings are the owner of their karma, the heirs of their karma. They have karma as their origin, karma as their property, karma as their result. Whatever karma they do, good or bad, they are its heirs. Huh? I just negated that, didn't I? But it's true, this is, generally speaking, beings are the owners of their karma. But if you're a stream winner and above is not the wrong word, or stream winner and what happens next, then there's much karma you don't own. You realize you're not an owner anymore. Wherever the karma ripens, it is there that you experience its results, either in this very life, Sanditika, in the next life, Samparayaka, or in some subsequent life. There comes a time when the great oceans dry up and evaporate and no longer exist. But still I say there is no making an end of suffering for those beings roaming through rebirth and death, blinded by delusion, addicted to wanting. There comes a time when the Himalaya, the king of mountains, burns up and perishes and no longer exists. But still I say there is no making an end of suffering for those beings roaming through rebirth and death, blinded by delusion, addicted to wanting. There comes a time when the planet Earth burns up, turns into cosmic dust, spreading through the universe and no longer exists. But still I say there is no making an end of suffering for those beings roaming through rebirth and death, blinded by delusion, addicted to wanting. And that's true. That was always great in the science classes. Even I think at school, when they started saying, what's the future of our solar system? And say, our sun is a type of sun, it's going to expand, get really big. So big, it's going to sort of totally subsume the Venus, Mars as well, And we get so close, so hot here, the planet Earth is going to be evaporated. And basically, even the solid stuff is going to melt and turn into vapor and just go into the universe. So all the things which we built, all the times we want to build these structures to last forever, all that, was it in Norway? They have an underground vault of every species, the seeds of every species, just in case. People want to just make monuments which will last forever. No, it's all going to be dust. The whole of NBM retreat center, which we're planning, and I was working so hard to make funds for, that's all going to burn and vaporize and go up into dust and spread through the universe with nothing remaining except dust. And even you, if you're the molecules of your body, the atoms of your body could tell their tale. You've got so many heavy metals in your body. And the only way they could come into existence was having gone through at least two supernova. That's the only way that science knows you can create these heavy metals. You were once a star which exploded with enormous power. And then you were dust, and that dust floated in the cosmos. And it came together with other particles again. And you became another sun, a second sun, and then it exploded again. And then some of that dust attracted to our sun, but never actually went into the sun, landed on planet Earth, made planet Earth, and you took up some of that, those metals, and that's you today. So that's some of you, your material body. That's its origins. 2 supernova. At least. That's actually, I'm not just making that up, that's true. So it's quite nice to see where we came from. You are stardust. Ajahn Mudita. So, Tim, why don't you call yourself, instead of your name, why don't you call yourself Stardust for your name next Sunday? So what's the party day for Stardust? Oh, I should know star. That's
Ñāṇatiloka. Ñāṇatiloka is star. Ñāṇatiloka.
Ñāṇatiloka. What about dust?
Is it
Chola.
Have a little dust in their eyes.
Raja? Or something like that?
So it's Ñāṇatiraja. We'll find a better translation for you. Okay, so that's the end of karma. So anyway, any comments about that? Yeah, you got one here.
So are you saying that everything we experience is our karma?
Of course not.
No, I'm just saying.
No, I never said that. But you're the owner of the karma. So in other words, but it's nice to be able to let it go. Because everything you experience is karma. The Buddha said, no way of that. What he really meant there, the karma from your past. Sometimes it's just, as some people say, sometimes you have some suffering, some injuries or something, disappointments. That's not so much like your karma, it's just much more general. What somebody once said, like the karma of being. You become a human being. And part of the karma of being a human being, you can die at any time, have much suffering, much disappointment. So it is almost the result of choosing life in this realm. Sometimes, having to clean the kitchen on a Sunday morning during the rains retreat. That's the karma of being an anagarika in this world, in this monastery. It's just part of what happens. You understand that idea of the law of karma? It's just, there's so much things which are uncertain, unpredictable, which are going to happen. And you have to be open for that. Disappointment, injury, death, sickness. We try to avoid it, but then sometimes you can't avoid it all the time. Make sense? Okay.
Now where, I'm sorry, I don't want to take it too long, but where did the other some Buddhist traditions take the idea that everything is your karma?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that is from, but the Buddha made it quite clear. He said sometimes it's just bad luck. Well, I don't like the word bad luck, the idea of luck. It's more like these are the, sometimes it will happen, sometimes it won't happen. And that's even any scientist here, that's spontaneous particle emission, creation. Two particles can actually spontaneously create. No cause to it, no karma. Literally, it's just because it can. And that's where that term Hawking radiation comes from. They are created close to the edge of a black hole. One gets sucked in, and the other one just goes out into the universe. And that's how black holes decay. Anyway, I think that's enough. When I start talking about black holes and cosmic radiation, it's time to finish off. Sadhu, 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 anumodami. Okay, very good. If you think that's too long, please let me know, give some feedback. Because if there's no feedback, then of course I don't know what's going on. And the next class would be on Saturday evening, the usual time. It's 7:15. Only because I have another engagement at 7:30, so I couldn't do it. But next time, Saturday evening. Is that okay? Yes. Yeah, very good. Oops. Arahant Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhaṃ Bhagavaṃ Abhivādemi Suwakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Now, Bert and me